Firearms in America are more than a legal issue. They're woven into the nation's culture and politics. Few topics spark debate like the right to bear arms, and Supreme Court actions on gun rights instantly become national news. The Second Amendment's meaning has been fiercely contested for centuries, and every new court case can reshape the law and daily life. Legal battles over guns reflect a deep divide: public safety versus individual rights. Understanding what the courts actually decide, separating fact from rumor, is crucial as the legal landscape shifts dramatically. Let's examine the real cases and decisions now shaping the future of gun rights in America. Recently, social media platforms have been flooded with posts and messages, sparking heated debates and confusion among users. Many of these posts claim that the Supreme Court has suddenly and dramatically ended all firearm permits across the country, causing widespread alarm. However, this information is completely false and has no basis in reality. In truth, the Supreme Court has not issued any emergency ruling or taken any action to eliminate gun permits nationwide. No such sweeping decision has been made, and the legal status of firearm permits remains unchanged. While it's true that the Supreme Court can sometimes act quickly on urgent procedural matters, any major change to national law, especially one affecting millions, requires a lengthy process. This includes accepting a case, hearing detailed arguments from both sides, and issuing a formal written opinion. None of these steps have occurred in this situation. The confusion seems to come from a misunderstanding of how the legal system works. Sometimes, a lower court might issue a ruling, or the Supreme Court might agree to review a case, but these actions do not instantly change the law for the entire country. In reality, what's happened is that several unrelated legal events have been misinterpreted and combined into a single, misleading story that's now spreading online. There is no nationwide ban on firearm permits. Instead, there are ongoing, deliberate legal proceedings in different courts, each addressing specific questions about gun laws. The real story is about individual cases and legal questions that are still moving through the court system, with outcomes that remain uncertain and will take time to resolve. So, before sharing or reacting to sensational headlines, take a moment to check the facts. Don't let rumors and misinformation shape your understanding of important legal issues. The national conversation around gun rights has reached a new turning point, and at the center of it all is the Supreme Court's decision to take up Woolford versus Lopez. This case has drawn intense attention from legal experts, advocacy groups, and everyday Americans alike, because it could reshape the landscape of gun laws across the country. Originating in Hawaii, Woolford versus Lopez is a major legal challenge that questions the state's approach to regulating firearms in public spaces. Hawaii's unique geography and culture have long influenced its laws, but now, the state's rules are under the national microscope. Unlike some high-profile emergency rulings, this case marks the beginning of what's expected to be a lengthy and closely watched judicial process. The Supreme Court's willingness to hear the case signals its potential importance for the future of Second Amendment interpretation. At the heart of the dispute is Hawaii's law that bans carrying firearms on most privately owned properties that are open to the public, unless the property owner posts a clear sign explicitly allowing guns. This means that, by default, most businesses, stores, and other public access spaces are off-limits to those carrying firearms. The law also prohibits carrying guns in a wide range of public places, including parks, government buildings, and public transportation hubs. These restrictions are among the strictest in the nation, and they have sparked heated debate about the balance between public safety and individual rights. The plaintiffs in Woolford v. Lopez argue that these sweeping restrictions make it nearly impossible for law-abiding citizens to carry a firearm for self-defense, even if they have a permit. They claim this violates the Second Amendment, which protects the right to keep and bear arms, and that the law effectively nullifies the ability to exercise that right in daily life. Importantly, the case isn't about whether people can get permits to carry guns. It's about how far the government can go in limiting where those permit holders are actually allowed to carry. The outcome could set a precedent for how states nationwide regulate the locations where firearms are permitted. That's why states like California, New York, and New Jersey are watching closely. These states have similar laws that restrict where guns can be carried, and a Supreme Court ruling could force them to change their policies or affirm their right to keep such restrictions in place. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's decision in Woolford versus Lopez will clarify whether these types of location-based restrictions are constitutional, and it could have ripple effects on gun laws across the United States for years to come. As the case moves forward, all eyes are on the court, not for a sweeping end to permits, but for a pivotal ruling that will define the boundaries of gun rights and government regulation in America. In recent years, California's open carry ban has become a focal point in the national conversation about gun rights and constitutional law. The controversy reached a turning point when a panel of judges from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the state's ban on openly carrying firearms in public. This decision sent shockwaves through legal and political circles, as California has some of the strictest gun regulations in the country. The panel found that the law was unconstitutional under the Second Amendment, which protects the right to keep and bear arms. Their ruling emphasized that the right to carry firearms for self-defense extends beyond the home and into public spaces. In reaching this conclusion, the court relied heavily on the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision, a landmark case that reshaped the legal landscape for gun laws across the United States. The Bruin decision established that any modern gun regulation must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, dating back to the founding era. When California attempted to justify its open carry ban, it was unable to provide convincing historical evidence of similar restrictions from the 18th or 19th centuries. Legal experts and historians scoured old statutes and court records, but found little support for such a sweeping prohibition. As a result, the Ninth Circuit panel ruled against the state, declaring the ban unconstitutional and setting a new precedent for how courts may evaluate gun laws in the future. However, this decision is not yet the final word. California's legal team has already announced plans to seek a review by a larger en banc panel of the Ninth Circuit, which could potentially overturn the panel's ruling. If the en banc court agrees to hear the case, the outcome could change, and the legal battle may continue for months or even years. Should California lose again, the state could appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, bringing national attention and potentially setting a binding precedent for all states. While this case is separate from the well-known Woolford litigation, it is closely related in its implications for gun rights and state authority. Both cases are part of a much broader debate that has intensified since the Bruin decision, with advocates and opponents of gun control rallying on both sides. Across the country, courts are now re-examining a wide range of gun laws, from concealed carry restrictions to bans on certain types of firearms, all through the lens of historical tradition. Each legal challenge follows its own unique path through the courts, influenced by local laws, judicial philosophies, and the evolving national conversation. But together, these cases signal a period of major change and uncertainty for gun laws in America, as the courts continue to shape the future of the Second Amendment. The Department of Justice, DOJ, also plays a key role. In Woolford versus Lopez, the DOJ filed a friend of the court brief urging the Supreme Court to review Hawaii's law, arguing it conflicts with the Bruin precedent. The DOJ said Hawaii's sweeping restrictions on where guns can be carried undermine the Second Amendment. This move signals the federal government sees the issue as nationally important. The DOJ's brief doesn't change the law, it's a legal argument, not an order. But when the Solicitor General recommends Supreme Court review, the justices often listen. The DOJ's involvement highlights the case's significance and the need for a clear, nationwide standard. Ultimately, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. The reason for these new cases is the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision, which changed how courts judge gun laws. Before Bruin, courts balanced public safety against gun rights. Now laws must match the nation's historical tradition at the time the Second Amendment was adopted. If a modern law lacks a clear historical analog, it's likely unconstitutional. Bruin struck down New York's restrictive permit system and forced states to adopt less discretionary, shall-issue models. The decision opened the door to challenges against a wide range of gun laws, including location restrictions. Judges now act as historians, comparing today's laws to those from centuries ago. This new test is driving the current wave of Second Amendment litigation. These legal battles have real consequences for gun owners, lawmakers, and the public. For gun owners, cases like Woolford decide whether a carry permit is meaningful if most places are off-limits. A ruling against broad restrictions would expand where they can legally carry. Lawmakers now face the challenge of crafting gun laws that survive the strict historical test set by Bruin. The outcome will clarify what kinds of location bans are allowed, guiding future legislation. For the public, the impact depends on personal views. Some feel safer with more guns in public, others less so. Supreme Court decisions will shape daily life, from business policies to family outings. Understanding the real legal questions helps everyone grasp what's at stake. The next big moment is the Supreme Court's ruling in Woolford v. Lopez, expected by June 2026. This decision will set the standard for sensitive place restrictions and affect laws in multiple states. Meanwhile, other cases, like California's open carry ban, are moving through the courts and could also reach the Supreme Court. Lawsuits over assault weapon bans, magazine limits, and age restrictions are pending, all judged under the new historical test. It's important to follow reliable sources and understand that Supreme Court decisions take time. There's no emergency decree, just a careful public process. The rumors of a sudden end to all gun permits are unfounded. The real story is a methodical re-evaluation of gun laws, driven by the courts and the Bruin decision.